and welcome back to the ABCs of ERP and Beyond, the podcast all around enterprise resource planning. And in today's episode, we are zeroing in on the transformative role ERP systems can enhance with procurement. So everything from automating purchase orders to helping improve supplier relationships, forecasting supply chains and supply chain disruptions. So hopefully today's discussion is packed with insights that will help any business optimize their procurement strategy and really achieve some cost savings along the way as well. So stay tuned as we delve into how ERP systems can provide benefits for procurement. This is part of a series we're doing, ERP benefits for ... And this episode is for procurement. And as ever, I'm joined with my co-host, Nirav Shah. Welcome back.
Hey, Peter. Happy to be back again and talk about this fascinating topic of, zeroing in on buyers, the buyer profile persona in an organization, whether that be manufacturing, distribution, e-commerce, and how ERP systems could help them in their job become more successful and help the business become more successful. And I've seen this, this transformation of just ERP, like, a ton of cost savings and cost reduction and increased quality performance and all these positive effects that come out from putting in a new ERP system for the buyer, the purchaser, procurement manager, or whatever we want to decide we want to call them. But that specific department in in the company has a huge benefit when they get into a ERP system, because they sit in the middle, right? They sit in the middle of everything that's happening, and they're kind of doing a 360 view of, like, okay, they're like all this paper, think of a tornado and all these papers flying around all over the place, and they have to grab one from the air because things are so fluid in their day to day, right? Where the ERP system just brings some calmness, to that particular function, to make it a really what I would say a revenue center. Can we say that? Can we say that purchasing could be a revenue center, even though they're the more in charge of buying? But if they could help the bottom line, right, with better inventory, with better costing, being more on time, can that increase revenue because that one department? I think it can. So this is a great topic. I think there's a lot to unpack here for this department and the benefits that they can gain.
Yep, and especially for the manufacturing world, if you're having to manage complex bill of materials and you've got multiple parts that all need to be at the right levels and be able to support factory from not shutting production lines down, there's a lot to juggle. It's easy to forget just how many parts have to be in the right place at the right time to make sure that, one, you're not tying up a load of cash in raw components, but two, so you're lean enough, so you've got good cash management, but also you are not risking putting lines down. And it's a fine balance, isn't it? And well, I've seen it when this is managed in Excel. Absolute nightmare. How I could not work in procurement if my inventory management was done in something like Excel. That just would be chaos. So yeah, they're really the glue. And when you said about revenue generation, they can be, because they can have a direct impact on customer performance, delivery performance. Are you delivering on time? Is the quality good? And a lot of that comes down to procurement being able to strategically source the right components, right quality level, at the right price as well. There's lots of cost savings across the whole P&L, but it starts at the top, doesn't it? With your material costs. It's where it's gonna start. The sales teams have won contracts at a set price. The very first cost you're going to incur as you go down that P&L is, what is my raw material cost for the components? And that's on the procurement team or the procurement manager to then have negotiations with vendors and suppliers of being able to lock in some of these. So they are a very key component and directly linked to the profitability of a company, as through managing costs, and the benefits that we see for ERP and how they can support procurement is today's topic.
Yeah, no, it's you hit on a lot of really good points that we're gonna expand on. But it like you mentioned, it's probably one of the biggest numbers on your balance sheet is inventory. Is how much inventory you're keeping, right? Too much inventory, that means you spend too much cash and you have to account for the liability. Too little inventory, you're not going to have happy customers because you're not going to be able to meet the demand. You need to have that right balance of appropriate inventory turnover. You know, the ratio that always gets, it's an important KPI for manufacturers and distributors is what's my inventory turn per year, right? To have that right level of turn so you're holding inventory just long enough that you need it. You could be proactive. You have some safety stock, but you're using it, consuming it, and then reordering more, right? It's a science, right? And you need to have a good system in place to understand what those numbers look like. Um, who are our good vendors? Who are our bad vendors? What should we be looking for? So I know there's a ton of topics that we have specifically around this. So if you're a buyer and you're on the fence to look at an ERP system, or why would an ERP system help you? We hope some of the things that we talk about here today, you know, you might be facing now, or if you're not, you might be happening, you just don't know it, right? But it's good to take these things and understand deeper in your organization, and then start evaluating, okay, well, can an ERP system, is it going to help me in these cases? And I probably want to say 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, an ERP system is going to help in these different
Hmm.
situations.
Yep. Okay, so let's dig into some of these that we've got down here. So we kind of mentioned these in passing. So let's look at in detail of these. Number one that we've got here, which is a hot one, is just having that clearer picture of what you need to purchase to meet demand. So what's an ERP doing? How can an ERP show us um, easily what we need to purchase to satisfy demand?
Yeah, you need to have a 360 view of what's happening to your inventory, right? Not just what's sitting in inventory now, but you need to know what sales is selling. That's the demand, right? They're selling things. Customers are calling. You're getting orders from Outlook. You're getting orders from EDI. You're getting orders from all these places. It could be a direct relationship that you buy and sell, or it could be indirect that you get an order for a top level item, and now you have to buy components that have to go through manufacturing, and you have to have them and purchased at the right time in order for you to meet that demand, essentially. And then on the other side of it, you're shipping inventory, you're consuming inventory, right? Inventory is moving. There's some shrinkage. There's things happening to inventory. So you need to have a clear picture of your supply and demand in order to meet those due dates, right? And how quickly your inventory is turning. So doing that in Excel is way too difficult. An ERP system gives you what we call an MRP and MPS process, or a demand requirements planning process. That's the new buzzword right now in the industry. Demand requirement planning. Essentially, it's like a mix of MPS, which is master production scheduling, and MRP, materials requirement planning, that you're ordering more on of demand itself, but essentially it's going there and looking at lead times, looking at what you sold already due out X number of days, right? Looks at what you have on inventory, looks at what you have already on purchase order, what already you have on production order, right? What you need to keep a good safety stock on hand, right? All these different factors or policies, um, and then it kind of does this algorithm, this calculation, um, in the planning process, and then spits out a number of suggestions to say, okay,
Mm,
because you're telling me you want to place orders within this time period, these are the orders you should place because it's the perfect time to do it, that you'll still meet your internal lead times, external lead times, to meet your customer dates, right? And you
Hmm.
get that full view all within one screen without having to pull five different spreadsheets to do seven different stand-ups per day to get to that information so you could make a decision and keep your supplier ahead of what they need to do so they could plan better, ultimately, and deliver on time for you, right? So,
Hmm.
a clear picture of supply is necessary. So, you are ordering the right things at the right moments. Um, um, and everyone is seeing that same data. It's not like
Mm.
it's just purchasing, right? You could extend that information to the receiving team, so they are alerted on what they're going to be receiving in next week or the
Hmm.
week after, right? Maybe they have to clear the receiving area, right, before they get this next container potentially. Well, they'll have access to being able to see that because they're an ERP system.
Yeah.
Um, Sales on the other side, you know, may want to know that we are expecting to receive an XYZ purchase order on this day, so they might start promising some orders, taking some orders without giving a kind of date in the wind, if you will. Like, we don't know when we're going to do our next purchasing, but we think it's going to happen
Mm.
this time because, Susie here or Joe there, they kind of do purchase orders every Thursday. So I'm thinking it might come in next Thursday. Not 100% sure. But,
Yeah.
instead, if the purchase order is in the system and sales has a view of that purchase order, sales could say, well, yeah, here we go. We see the purchase order, we see the due date, and we could confidently deliver this to you, Mr. Customer, by this date.
Even when they put the order on the system, you can have flags saying,
Oh,
"I've
yeah.
not got enough to cover this,"
Right.
or even the earliest date that they could fulfill based on how long it's going to take procurement to be able to get the necessary materials in as
Right.
well. Like, this is your
Right.
earliest potential date you can promise.
Right. Right.
And I think
Absolutely.
sometimes it smooths out the curves. Like, every customer service person knows it's always those customers that have an urgent order. Like, oh, I need this tomorrow. Um, and immediately you know that there's obviously some part of their ERP they're not utilizing, or they're running themselves on Excel. Shouldn't be a,
Yep.
there shouldn't be a time when they suddenly need something they didn't know about and they need it tomorrow. Um,
Yep.
and you can stop that because it could be a chain reaction, right? If you're also working, if your procurement are also working on Excel, they then have a sudden demand to fulfill. They're going to then purchase from your vendor going, oh, I need this tomorrow because my customer needs it tomorrow. And that chain continues, doesn't it? But at some
Mhm.
point, hopefully, in that supply chain, you'll get to a company that has an ERP where they have set min max levels, they have safety stock buffer, and that safety stock buffer with the min max levels would have been calculated on prior demand, patterns, seasonality, peaks and troughs,
Mhm.
and then calm ensues. It can be chaos from customers having these sudden urgent requests
Absolutely.
because their procurement
Absolutely.
forgot to order because Jim didn't update the Excel spreadsheet. You know?
Exactly. Exactly. And there's only so long that you could continue that way before the frustration bubbles over, right? And especially in this day and age, everyone's asking the question, there has to be a better way. We can't be the only ones be doing it this way all the time, right? And there is, right? ERP systems are designed to provide that robust feedback to create a smooth supply chain between your vendors and your business.
I guess this links into the next point we've got here, better negotiated pricing based on
Yeah.
usage history. So if we use this chaotic customer that's just turned around and said, I need 1,000 units tomorrow. I am running a company, my procurement team have kept on top of safety stock levels and stuff like this. If they hadn't, I would be turning around to my vendor going, I need this tomorrow. You're going to have to expedite the freight to me. Now you've got increased freight costs.
Right.
However, if this is managed well in an ERP, you can start to see some of these savings, not only mitigating the risk of extra costs in expedited freight, but also going the other way in
Mhm.
terms of achieving better pricing and lower costs. So, what can the ERP do to help us reduce our costs? What areas can we see a reduction in costs?
Yeah, it's seeing the view of what are we always ordering? How often are we ordering? Right? That historical view is super important.
Mm.
And it's not just what you're buying now. It's that historical view of what you've bought in the past. It's super important because that could help you put yourself in better negotiation positions with your vendor and saying, hey, Mr. Vendor, look, we purchased 1 million of this. One of my good friends, Kent Richardson, always says a left-handed monkey wrench, right? We ordered 1 million of these guys, and we've been buying it for like $15 each. Can we get a minimum order quantity, and can we get better pricing here? Right? Can we buy it at $5 each now because we know we order 1 million, right? You could have that historical view. So bulk buying is a huge savings around that. Um, Being able to negotiate better terms, right? If you are a good customer, right, and you buy from this specific vendor all the time, and your vendor's only giving you 14-day terms, right? That's kind of like tying up your cash flow,
Yeah.
pretty hard. So, you could go to your vendor and say, hey, look, Mr. Vendor, we've been buying for you for the last 3 years. We've been doing 14-day terms. We're looking to increase our volume because of X, Y, and Z reasons. Could we kind of look at, how to improve our terms for both parties so we could, free up our cash flow basically a little bit
Hmm.
more, right? That's an important point as well. Um, and as you mentioned, Peter, is saving on shipping costs, right? A lot of times, you're paying the shipping for your own product, but if you don't have that proper view or that process to be more proactive, and you're always ordering last minute, or you're ordering like you have three purchase orders to the vendor for that same week instead of cutting one purchase order for that vendor,
Yeah.
right? Your shipping costs are going to go up, and instead of doing that, instead of paying shipping costs two, three, four times, or expedited fees, right? uh, Being
Hmm.
in an ERP system will give you better information by planning those orders better because they're put into the system, the demand, and then you can generate one purchase order for a matter of a span of 2 weeks. So
Hmm.
you get quantity breaks, and you get a discount, and you get better
Yeah.
freight terms, and all these things that just become better because it's going to increase your bottom line. You're reducing your cost to increase your margin.
The potential of being able to look at, say, safety stock levels or minimum stock levels across all of the parts that I order from, say, one vendor, and I could go and I could cross-reference that against production output or against customer demand, and go, okay, all of my safety stock levels are minimum 4 weeks. So at any one time of the month, I'm sitting on at least 4 weeks worth of stock.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can say,
Mm-hmm.
well, I could potentially reduce all of my purchase orders to that vendor to one a month, consolidate all of it, because I know I've got 4 weeks. I've always got 4 weeks on the shelf. So I could
Mm-hmm.
run down my stock and then put in a month order to replenish that month. So
Yep.
if I'm in a position where I'm giving a vendor 2 or 3 purchase orders a week, say there could be 12, 15 orders a month. It's 150 plus purchase orders a year, down to 12 if I'm
Yep.
doing it on a monthly basis. And as
Right.
long as my safety stock levels are correct and I'm happy that I'm always at my minimum 4 week level of
Yep.
component parts or whatever it happens to be, um, immediately I can consolidate. And the vendor's
Yep.
going to be super happy with that. Imagine that, knowing
Right.
that, oh yeah, my customer always gives me a purchase order on the 5th of every month. I know what to expect. It's almost like that unwritten rule, and it's a bit like tribal knowledge, but the whole company ends up knowing. The warehouse know, oh yeah, we have a
Yeah.
customer that does a big shipment. They'll be prepared. They'll know they're
Exactly.
going to start having stock to pick and palletize. You're probably going to find that you are going to have better customer service
Yep.
from your vendor when
Oh
you
yeah.
can give them that consistent approach. You want to be that
Mhm.
guy because they'll be waiting for your order.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you'll probably see less quality errors, you know, where there's enough time, that they're able to check your items and you're getting the right material and the right quality that you expect. from your vendor. So yeah, I mean that goes to kind of the supplier performance. It's when you
Mm.
could have when you have a good system in place, you can measure your suppliers correctly,
Yeah.
right? Like how come this supplier is always delivering it late? Okay, all right, now you could put suppliers in different tiers. You have a tier one supplier, tier two supplier, tier three supplier, right? Why are they? Why is there so many quality issues? Now you have tier one supplier, tier two, tier three. All these things you could create a full matrix of your suppliers and put them into different tiers. Let them know what tier they're on, and let them work hard to jump to the next tier for you,
Hmm.
right? Because now you have the data to back up why that particular supplier is causing issues in your business, right?
Yeah.
Could be issues on the shipping side, on the manufacturing, on receiving. Accounts are always wrong or whatever that is, right? But now this is the feedback you can give your supplier and tell your supplier. This last month we cut 10 purchase orders for you. Out of the 10, 8 came back with the wrong quantities, and that to us is a problem, Mr. Supplier. Here's the proof, and now we have to move you to tier three. And to get back to tier
Hmm.
two, we're gonna go ahead and monitor your performance the next month, and then bring you up. Right now, you have
Yeah.
that data at the end of the day, and could do root cause analysis on which suppliers are better for your business versus not better for your business. Right? Let's face it,
Mm.
every company kind of has those better suppliers that they work with, and to be able to measure them, actually properly measure them in different categories
Hmm.
and buckets is a huge game changer in that area, especially with the data to back it up from like an ERP system.
Hmm. We say about vendor performance. I wonder how often, when we measure vendor performance, it's actually a reflection on ourselves. Like you could go to a vendor and go, "Oh, you always deliver late." Well, if you're the one that's causing the chaos and jamming in orders that you need tomorrow, should you really hold your vendor accountable for that? Hello, Mr. Vendor. The quantity is always wrong. Yes,
Yeah.
because you need them urgently. We have to part ship. Like, you're the one creating the chaos. Like, don't blame
Yeah.
me and say it's my vendor
Is it
performance when you're causing the issue.
isn't there a saying though, Peter? The customer is always right.
Yeah, that's not true. That's why I don't work in sales anymore.
Darn it! Can't use that one all the time.
I've died on too many hills trying to make people realize the customer is not always right. They're
No, not
often
always
wrong.
right. Oh yeah, but you're right. Vendors not probably going to be very upfront about it that way, maybe most times, but they're probably talking about it under the lip, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
That's an important point.
Yeah. This is why I don't work in sales anymore, because I would be someone's vendor and I would be having them back going, do not mark me down as vendor performance when your guys are idiots
Yes, you're good.
giving me 15 orders a day, needing it
Yeah,
all
yeah,
tomorrow. Like that's not
yeah,
on me.
yeah. That's not
Sort your own
fair. That's
camp
not
out.
fair. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Customer's always right. Do, 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 do.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on before I get angry about this.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, that's probably a good idea.
um, okay, next one we got. Oh, this is a good one. Automate purchase order creation. You know me.
Yeah.
Any opportunity to be lazier than normal, I will take. And
Yeah.
every time I see the word automation, I get happy. So, automating purchase orders. What does an ERP do to automate?
Yeah, it takes out the manual entering of purchase orders, right? You have a system like a planning engine, MRP, demand requirement planning, something that's crunching all of this information for you and giving you a suggestion that you need to order this by this time frame to meet your due date. And you click a button and that purchase order gets created, right? You don't have to worry about pricing because pricing is loaded in the system. Pricing is loaded by quantity breaks, right? It's loaded by units
Hmm.
of measure. And you have the due date that comes over from a planning engine. And you have multiple items that gets created into a single purchase order because a single vendor. You don't have to do all this stuff manual. Like it would take out days from people. Like I've had customers literally they spent 3 days just hand keying purchase orders, like a week, literally a week. They would hand key purchase orders,
Nice.
and Yeah, and it's like, guys, that's so like green bar type technology now.
Mhm.
And you don't have to do that, right? Let these more robust ERP systems do a lot of these processing for you, give you the suggestions. You could update that, you could modify those suggestions if you like right there on the screen, but then you just click a button and it creates all those purchase orders for you and then recognizes those are actually valid supply orders. And then it starts updating sales demand, it starts updating inventory quantities, and up starts up doing all these nice things to keep everybody informed that purchasing just executed these purchase orders to vendors, and now we should be on the lookout and we should be getting this inventory at some point defined on the receipt date of that purchase order, right? And all that stuff happens without you having to manually update 5 different spreadsheets: inventory spreadsheet, purchase order spreadsheet, a sales spreadsheet, a master spreadsheet, and then QuickBooks. Forgot about QuickBooks. Got to update QuickBooks someplace. Peter, you got to update QuickBooks. But you update, right? Instead of doing any of that, it all happens automatically through
Mm.
the ERP, which is huge. Huge automation is huge, and
Yeah.
eliminates a lot of errors that could happen from it. Right? We're talking about double ordering potentially. Oh, somebody put in an order for Acme distribution, and I didn't see it because Jim didn't put it in our Excel spreadsheet, and I thought we still had to order it, so I placed another order for it, and now we have 2 orders of the same thing now.
Yeah.
Oops,
Yeah.
oopsies, right? Not a good position to be in.
Yeah.
Eliminating silos, right? You have all these purchasers working, so you have a team of purchasers working in a department. Well,
Mm.
they don't have to work in their own, you kind of work as a team, right? You see, okay, well, I see, Mary here is ordering widget Y. I don't need to order that, right? There's an order already placed on that. I'm going to order the left-handed monkey wrench because that's more important for us right now,
Mhm.
right? And you start looking at everyone working together collaboratively in a single system without like expecting like everyone has to do everything all the time. Everybody
Yep.
has to do everything all the time. You don't have to. You don't have to do that.
Yep. Makes me wonder, say, how often does a company go through an ERP migration, would you say, on average?
Kind of two main factors, right? Probably every 10 to the 15 to 20 years, I want to say. They'll go through maybe a revisit of is there better software out there? The business has changed a little bit. So maybe they're looking for a solution that fits more their business now. Or there's a change in executive team,
Mhm.
and the executive team is just used to using a specific software and they want to implement that.
Yeah.
So kind of I would say 10 to 15 to 20 years, I would probably say maybe
Yeah.
is like the typical range.
So if we go down the middle and say 15 years, how much
Yeah.
advancement in the way an ERP can offer automation, process efficiencies, how much advancements happened in 15 years?
Oh my God, I think huge, right? Is interfaces are better. Being able to connect directly to vendor inventory, the vendor systems, EDI.
Hmm.
You're talking about vendor portals, all these really easy ways to now see inventory, and we're not even talking about right what's going to happen the next wave, which is the next 5 to 10 years. Because if you're not on a cloud-based ERP product now and you wait another 10 years, you're not going to be able to take advantage of the co-pilot and AI stuff that's going to come in procurement and how that's going
Mm.
to accelerate the efficiency process in this department within the
Yeah.
ERP system, right? So it's already been leaps and bounds and huge gains
Hmm.
from what's been happening in the 70s to like now, right, in
Yeah.
2024. And it's just continued to grow with the advent of AI and Copilot. I
Mm.
mean, there's a lot of tasks that are going to be so intelligent that you don't have to do through, even clicking a button at this point. It'll
Yeah.
crunch the data and it will tell you that, hey, you should order this at this time, right? Maybe send an email to the vendor, get a response back, and then commit the order to in your ERP system. Like I see that as like really the future, right? There's this AI
Mm.
that's talking to another AI on the vendor side saying, hey, does this dates match because we need this at this time?
Yeah.
Um, it's if you're not on it now, and cloud-based ERP system, you're already, I think, a little behind. I think you need to start making the move right away, and
Yep.
it's just going to accelerate so fast.
Yep. And from a cyber point of view, and all of the
Oh
other
yeah,
things, and uptime, and uh, how quickly you can recover from downtime, all of the stuff that SaaS gives you that
yeah,
on-prem doesn't. Um,
yeah,
but this is the thing, right? Companies don't know this kind of stuff. And if we
right,
think of technology in uh, smartphones, for example, imagine a
yeah,
smartphone from 15 years ago. They still had
oh
push
yeah,
buttons on the front of it. So
mm-hmm.
these companies that are going out that have got a 15-year-old phone that haven't, you know, companies aren't reading news about the latest advancements in ERP. No one's doing that apart from ERP
Right,
vendors. So
right,
they're still expecting to see phones with push buttons on it. And when they go to market for a new ERP, they're going to get concerned. They're going to go, oh, well, how can it send texts because there's no buttons on the front of it? You
right,
know, it's the same
right.
kind of thing. Like we can talk about the automation and AI and all this cool stuff, and they're still looking for the button that says print to PDF. They're not even aware that you don't have to print to PDF or print to your printer to
Right,
fax
right,
a purchase
right,
order to a
right.
vendor. So we can say,
Mhm.
oh yeah, there's automation. You just click the send button. They're more concerned there's no way to print it. And I said this to someone I think last week. It's like a company that's going to purchase a car, and the car salesman has gone off showing them all of the latest features in CarPlay and all these kind of gadgets and the heated steering wheel and stuff like that. But the customer's put off because they can't find the door handle to unwind the window to cool themselves down. You know, like it hasn't even occurred
Yeah,
to the car salesman
right,
to say, guys,
right.
you do know that aircon is like standard. You don't even need
Exactly.
to push, like the handle's gone. That got replaced by a button, but you don't
By
even
a
need
button.
that anymore because it's got
No,
aircon. But the
exactly.
customer doesn't know all of this advancement,
Yeah,
and they're just
right.
concerned that the car is no good because it hasn't got a handle to wind the window down.
Yeah,
And it's the
yeah,
same thing for this, right? We can talk
yeah,
about the automation and efficiencies on bulk purchasing and all this kind of cool stuff, and but they're still looking for the print button.
yeah.
There's a lot of work to do to get
There's a
to
lot of work.
drag these people, and
There's
I guess that's
there's
just
like,
it's part and parcel of companies looking at this every 15
I
years,
think
isn't it?
so. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it is right, and that's where you kind of what you can't do right now is turn your back to cloud. I think whether you know technology or not, I think you've been hearing this as being a business owner or being part
Yeah,
of an organization. Cloud, it's one of those things like you can't be riding a horse and carriage anymore. You need to at least have a car. And now at this point, it's like you said. I think as the technology emerges and it gets more out there, and um, customers kind of get in this different mindset, like, hey, we we know that technology could do these things, or um, um, does it do these things? Start asking the question. I think that's obviously when you're going to get the most benefit out of the technology and the pieces that you do. But you're 100% right. Right? There's all these great features out there, but if you're zeroed in on one
yeah.
thing and that's the only thing you're going to miss the obvious right in front of you.
It's completely turned. There's very few isolated cases where on-prem still makes more sense than on
Hmm.
cloud. Maybe it's because of restrictions in the particular industry, or
Yeah,
there's not an ERP that's certified for your very sensitive industry, or whatever it
yeah,
happens to be. But
right.
we're seeing cloud ERP now get certified in the in the medical
Oh
industry
yeah,
for
oh yeah.
um, data protection and all that kind of stuff. So
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
going away, and there's going to be very soon little in the way of on-prem still makes more sense. It used to be
Yep.
the other way around, wasn't it? It was like, well, there's
Hmm.
few cases where you can move to cloud
Right.
if you tick all of these boxes. Now it's
Exactly.
like very few boxes. Okay, we have covered a few. We've got one more that I quite like here, which is supply chain issues. Now, we did put underneath it COVID. I would say I'd be very surprised if there was someone on an ERP that was like, COVID? Yeah, we didn't have any issues whatsoever because our ERP is so cool.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Our
but
ERPs. Yeah.
But supply chain issues happen. Like COVID was the only thing of recent times that said, yeah, there's not an ERP in the world that would have made smooth sailing through the
No,
pandemic.
no.
But supply chain issues still happen, doesn't it?
Yep,
Freight issues,
yep.
things like this.
They
So,
happen. They,
so how can an ERP over QuickBooks or Excel spreadsheets, how can an ERP help us through temporary supply chain issues?
yeah, look, I mean, it tells you what you have on order already out there that you're not going to be able to make to your customers, right? That you're not going to be able to make to your warehouse team or manufacturing team. You could adjust. You could start calling all those customers that are looking for that demand, right? And tell them, hey, it's just going to be pushed out another year in the case of COVID before I ship to you. Um, and it just kind of gives you a leg up. There's supply chain issues are always going to be there. There's always going to be something or another, right? Not as serious as COVID, hopefully not. Because that was a big problem through that time. But it gives you the ability to be reactive pretty fast, right? Keep happy customers, right? Customers, they just want to know. Yeah, sometimes there's going to be some critical customers that you just have to deliver, and if you can't, you're gonna hear it. But most customers, if you're upfront and tell them that, hey, these are the orders you place with us. This is our current situation. This is what we have on order. It's just gonna come late, by a week, and we're gonna do our best to fulfill it. I think they're gonna be more than happy that you provided that feedback, right? So that's point number one.
Mhm.
Number two is like unforeseen things that might happen. Right. Let's say you're buying stuff from vendors, but now all of a sudden you're getting hit by tariff charges. Remember that whole big tariff situation where they charge an extra, what was that, 10% tariff fees, anything coming from China, right? Things like this. So you could start now managing that fee when it comes in. Well, how come you're paying extra? Why do we, how do we take this extra charge and make it into a landed cost into our items at the end of the day, right?
Mm,
Um, these type of scenarios are going to come up often, more often than not. So it's important to understand what the supply chain risks are, and the
yeah.
ERP will help you adjust to those supply chain risks out there.
We're rapidly running out of benefits here for procurement, but I really like this one.
Yeah.
And for me, this is like the holy grail of being lazy. Um, I'm going to indirectly say it. We've got a nice comparison here for what this means. And I'm going to just say what we've written down. Vending machines. Vending
I see
machines.
that you frequent those often, Peter. Vending machines.
My belly is not in camera shot, so you don't know. I could be stick thin behind this.
Like
I'm
put
not.
dropping those quarters in there, or the pence on your side.
Yeah, that's it.
Probably pounds
Um,
now, man. These vending machines are kind of expensive, but
yeah.
um,
So, what do
yeah.
we mean
Go
by
ahead,
vending
Peter.
machines? How does a vending machine get replenished? Let's start with what we mean by a vending machine. Who
Yeah,
replenishes the vending machine?
it's the vendor managed inventory, which is huge, and
Yeah.
it's a game changer, really, in the whole procurement world. Vendors coming into your facility, managing, a quote unquote vending machine or certain area of stock, right? Could be the graveyard where you put a bunch of lumber. Could be your area where you house a bunch of bar stock, metal or metals or whatever it is, right? But they come in, they kind of do an inventory of it, they replenish it, and they just send you an invoice electronically, right? You don't have to really do a purchase order. They're keeping your stock up to a certain level all the time, so you're not running out. But that's where an ERP, a robust ERP, could help you with that interaction, right? The vendor could
Mm.
come in, could immediately do a transaction to receive in that inventory goods, which would then immediately create an invoice for you that needs to go in approval process and then gets basically aged to pay the vendor, right? All without
Yeah.
even having a purchaser involved in the process, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's the end game. That's the end state where you could be hands off because you trust your vendor enough that he's not going to overcharge you. He's not going to, do the X, Y, and
Hmm.
Z. That would be willful to your business. But is where vendors are actually part of your organization. A lot of people tell me in my business that my customers that you are an extension of our IT team. You're an extension of our ERP team because we lean on your team for ERP help. That's perfect because they trust us. We give them their
Yeah.
confidence in helping them run their business on the ERP system. it's just like that. Like these vendor managed inventory situations, the vendor is an extension of your purchasing team, right? They're an
Yeah.
extension of you guys. It's not like thinking of them as a complete different entity. They come in and they really are there to help you to make sure you're delivering on time to your customers. So that's the important point. There's ERP systems out there that will help with that flow and make sure that inventory is real time when needed. So and vendor
Yeah.
portals is another one where vendor portals, if they don't, if they come in and replenish, you can go on the vendor portal and then see the status, right? Or if
Mhm.
you need to see a status of your purchase orders you placed on the vendor, you could go see the status of the purchase order, see the status of the shipment, what's
Yeah.
happening coming to you guys, right? And those are all technologies that would just help that communication, bridge that communication gap, so you can
Yeah.
service customers better ultimately at the end of the day.
Yeah. And this is so much easier now. ERPs are on the cloud, right? You haven't got to worry about, well, it was almost an impossibility before. Now you can
Yeah.
set up your vendor as a user of your ERP,
Mm-hmm.
limit
Yep.
what they can see, what
Yeah.
tables they can access, and there you go, log into my instance of Acumatica and go,
Yep.
okay, Mr. Vendor number 1 of 20, here's your login. Just manage these 50 parts that I buy from you.
Yep.
You can say, look, we kind of expect to use this over the next 12 months. Let's secure a price based on that. And then I just need to set up what I need as a safety stock. Like when it runs down to uh, 500 units left, top me up by 1,000 units.
Yep.
That's it. Hands
Yep.
off.
That's it. That's it. Exactly. Exactly. Right. It's like
Because
that.
no doubt your procurement is also handling inbound, chasing freight forwarders of shipments that are stuck at ports. They've got all of that, let alone the purchasing on top of it. So
Right.
they can get rid of the constant replenishment of high running stuff, and you can push that into your vendor and go, look, I trust you enough. Here's your login. This is what I expect of you. Replen by X amount when I get to Y amount. Go. That
Yep.
allows your team uh, of one often to
Yeah.
focus on areas where they can actually have more impact and more value.
Yeah. I mean, no different than what grocery chains have been doing for a very, very long time. Right. Grocery chains, you have the bread producer coming in replenishing the bread aisle for their inventory. Right. You have the ketchup guys coming in and replenishing their ketchup stock. Right. It's it's that's been happening in other industries. It just hasn't been as pronounced in like the distribution manufacturing world in warehouses, right? But it works well when you have the right technology and right vendors in place.
If there's any vending machine companies that want to now sponsor us, I don't know. Look, Starbucks didn't get back to us, so we might as well
Yeah,
try
yeah,
something
I
different
know.
industry now.
Yeah, yeah, I know. All right, vending machines it is. But only the ones that stock the Oreos, though. Oreos are so good. Every time I walk past one, I gotta put $1 in. I have no choice.
You know, this is the
It's a
one
no
thing of
choice.
all the things when I was in Chicago that I miss, and there's many. It's the Shake Shack Oreo shake.
Oh, you had like five of them.
And they're 1,000 calories each. 1,000 calories. There was one day I had two.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. But then you walked a lot too that day. Remember? You walked a
Yeah,
ton
it was
that
like
day.
18,000 steps or something.
18,000 steps. You walked a ton. That was good.
Yep.
You needed some energy.
Yep. I walked from the Adler Observatory,
Yeah.
the planetarium, to the Willis Tower,
Wow.
all the
Yeah.
way up the lakeside. That was
Wow.
a long walk. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't get three of those things.
That's why I had another Shake Shack.
Brilliant, Peter. Brilliant. I love it.
um, Good. I think that was really cool. I'm really enjoying this mini series that we're doing. We're kind of dropping them
Yeah.
in bit by bit. We did ERP benefits for C level before. I think we did. I think
Sales
we did one for
managers.
sales. Yeah. So procurement is great to now finish off. There's a few others, isn't there? There's lots of departments.
Yeah. There is a
Um,
planning department. We'll look at We'll look at, what does a receiving clerk need, right? AR, AP, and really, dig into the
Warehousing.
details there. AP is going to be a lot of fun. AP automation and stuff. But warehousing, yes, absolutely. So we'll dive into a lot of this.
This is where ERP comes in. It just takes the brunt work of this admin stuff off you. And you don't have to spend your time updating Jim's spreadsheet. We seem to have honed in on hating QuickBooks, and now people call Jim. So there's two things that we now have ruled out of our fan base. Good, thank you. That was a great episode of the ABCs of ERP and Beyond. We come out with an episode every 2 weeks, coming out on Fridays at the moment, audio and video. So this does get posted to YouTube. Check it out. Find us on YouTube. Make sure you smash that like button and the subscribe button. We sometimes do screen shares. We have demos of various ERPs in various different forms of specific areas of how ERP can solve a lot of the pain points that you might have. So you can't really get the full experience from audio only, especially when Nirav's like, look at this on my screen. That means nothing to you if you're just hitting the audio only.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
find us on YouTube as well for when we do screen shares.
Yeah.
And I think that's it from me. So thank you once again, Nirav.
Thank you.
Enjoy the next 2 weeks, and I will see you on the next episode.
Perfect. That's it.